Hello, and welcome to this Sampled Tech Talk. My name is Harris Chowdhury. I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Sampled, and today I'm joined by Mike Sheldon, who is the Senior Director of Scientific Affairs. Hi, Mike. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Harris. I'm happy to be here.
Why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about your role here at Sampled?
Sure. I've founded a department, Scientific Affairs, at Sampled about 3 years ago. Prior to that, in the 14 years before that, in my involvement with the company, I supervised most of the laboratories under the sample processing department. So my current role as Scientific Affairs Senior Director is to serve as a technical resource and liaison both for sampled staff within our company as well as facing outward with clients and the scientific community to spread the word, if you will, about all the wonderful services that we offer at Sampled.
Thanks, Mike. Today we're here to talk about storing samples under cryogenic conditions. So why don't you kick us off by telling us what that involves?
Let me first set the stage for you with giving you an overview of what we do at Sampled. So, as the world's first global integrated analytical biorepository, Sampled plays a central role in large-scale studies designed to improve healthcare and outcomes in a variety of diseases. And these studies rely critically on the collection, shipment, processing, storage, and distribution of the highest quality biospecimens for analysis. The latter stages of this process, including regulated storage and distribution of samples around the world using proper cold chain logistics, are hugely important. Research studies designed to address important healthcare issues, such as identifying the underlying causes of disease initiation and progression, as well as potential therapeutic targets, involve the expenditure of significant amounts of money to identify potential participants, screen them for eligibility, and collect and process their biospecimens. If these samples are stored improperly, thus compromising their integrity, millions of dollars and months and years of time could potentially be lost. It's therefore essential to establish centralized resources for the regulated storage of biospecimens at appropriate temperatures to ensure their integrity and availability to the global research community. So what does this process look like? So it starts with the lab, of course, where the samples are processed with the intention of being stored under cryogenic conditions, minus 196 or less for liquid nitrogen storage, for example. Okay. So those samples that have gone through computer-controlled rate freezing, for example, for storage, are then transferred to cryotanks. And that's really the center of a very large infrastructure. So these cryotanks, these thermally insulated tanks, are equipped to, of course, be able to store liquid nitrogen both in the liquid and vapor phase, but they're also connected to automated filling devices connected to a large bulk tank for storage outside. And we can talk about why that's an important thing as well. In addition to being connected to automated filling systems so that you can collect a large number of samples and be ensured that they're all maintained under proper filling conditions. They're all connected to temperature monitoring systems that are connected to a central system for producing auditable records of the temperature and the level of nitrogen in each tank, and critical for things like clinical studies, as well as allowing facilities directors and other staff who maintain the facility to monitor the tanks and respond to any emergencies such as breaches in tanks, which are rare, but more likely deviations in the temperature due to deviations in the level of the liquid nitrogen. In those instances, when deviations are detected, rapid response is required from trained staff. And this is one of the key components of the system, as well as the human side, having a staff of highly trained people who are following standard operating procedures to ensure the safety of the samples.
Thanks for that, Mike. How difficult or what kind of challenges would someone face if they were looking to set up their own cryogenic storage facility in-house themselves?
Okay, that's a really good question. So, as I mentioned before, it really all starts with and is centered on the cryotank. So, of course, you would need to buy one or more of those depending on the size of your project and what you need to store and for how long you need to store it. But that's only the very beginning. So then decisions have to be made, again, depending on the scale and the needs of your study, about how many of those tanks you need. So therefore, how much space is required in your facility. And space is often at a premium, especially in large cities. So there's the expenditure of space. You then need to decide how much staff you have to dedicate to the oversight and maintenance of the samples and the tanks. They have to be monitored routinely for liquid nitrogen levels, for their integrity, refilled when necessary. So staff can either refill those manually or they can be connected to the kind of automated filling devices that we have at Sampled. And you need a source of liquid nitrogen. So you need either regular deliveries from a provider or a bulk tank that you have outside your facility. Has to be stored outside for safety concerns. So you therefore need space outside and a bulk tank, which is quite expensive as well. So there are a lot of infrastructure considerations. I mentioned before the critical role of a temperature monitoring system and monitoring of the level of the liquid in the tanks. This is absolutely critical to provide an auditable record of this temperature storage conditions that each sample was subjected to during the course of its life with your laboratory. This is very important for regulatory agencies such as the College of American Pathologists and CLIA, who regulate clinical studies, FDA, and other agencies that ensure the integrity of studies, particularly clinical studies, but research studies as well. So compliance with those kinds of agencies is very, very important and indeed is tied closely to the kind of infrastructure you have in place and the kind of quality systems you have in place. So Sampled, for example, has a dedicated quality team whose job it is to oversee all of the standard operating procedures, the training of staff to make sure that they're doing their job properly in monitoring and maintaining tanks, and that all of the systems are properly checked and monitored. So there are a lot of support structures, both human and hardware, that are required just for that one tank, never mind the 20 or 30 or so that a larger facility might have.
Thank you, Mike. That's really interesting. What would you say are the advantages for outsourcing cryogenic sample storage to a company such as Sampled?
Mhm. I think there are two major considerations in answering your question, and I've kind of touched on the first side, that is the facilities, infrastructure, and training that we have at Sample to offer. So we have essentially built a laboratory for our clients to use so that they can focus on the important questions of their own research rather than having to worry about the capital expenditures needed to build a laboratory, all the things that we talked about before, acquire tanks, refilling stations, what have you. So we have that all set up in a College of American Pathologists Biorepository accredited and CLIA accredited manner in our central laboratory. We have laboratories in New Jersey and in the UK as well that both have these kinds of capabilities. So these are already available to our clients, and they provide an economical, easy to use, one-stop resource for the storage of their specimens. And this is certainly a critical consideration. But in addition to the economical and logistical considerations, there are the issues of trust, reliability, and track record. And here is where we particularly excel at Sampled. We have a nearly quarter century track record of providing biorepository resources in a regulated manner to large-scale international projects, such as those sponsored by the National Institute of Health and major pharma and biotech companies. And these include, by the way, clinical trials and GMP-grade storage. So we span the gamut of research and clinical requirements for storage. And here, you can therefore rely on your samples being stored safely in a state-of-the-art facility that maintains constant accreditation standards for all of these agencies, and is always on the forefront of improving and adopting new technologies. We have Part 11 CFR compliant regulation of temperature monitoring, for example, and we're constantly looking to improve. So we not only have that reliability, but we also maintain the proper staffing at all times, because after all, keep in mind that a cryogenic storage, even one single tank, isn't a matter of setting it up in your laboratory and walking away. It requires a constant process of monitoring and improvement and training and staffing. And that's something you don't have to think about when you work with Sampled. We take care of it for you.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for watching this sampled Tech Talk. We hope to see you at the next one. Goodbye.